let's start with one that's been a mystery, a myth, has been challenged, has been said it didn't happen. Guys reputable, no, it did happen. And it's the big Cobo Arena box office robbery.
Now, this story has never been told publicly. It's infamous in the business, in the wrestling business. Uh, Back in the later 70s, and this was in 1978, right? October 8th, 1978, there was a Cobo show. At this point in time, big time wrestling crowds had dropped from 12,000, 10,000 to 3,000, 2,000, and eventually would drop off even further to the point where big time wrestling was no longer presenting at Cobo Arena. But money was tight.
Yep, very tight at the time.
The Sheik and his wife Joyce were running the promotion, and things were not good.
It was starting to be a little sinking ship. There was a hole in the hull, and things were going downhill. And like you said, money was tight.
They were spending a lot of money on a lot of different things, a lot of different cities. We talked about having TV in 30 cities around the country. Not all, but some of those TV times did cost a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah.
Not all was made up by sponsorships.
And the TV truck at that time was repossessed, so he didn't have that, to deal with. But on this one date, October 8th, Sheik was not on the card in Detroit that day.
No, he had been talked into pulling himself out of Cobo. Gary Hart, Mark Lewin, a few others decided that, well, problem with the territory is the Sheik hasn't burned out. Mm-hmm. Too many Sheik main events, too many quick matches, too many fire or screw job endings, and with probably a lot of validity to that. But so the Sheik would take himself off the show every now and then. The problem with that was whenever the Sheik took himself off the show, you'd lose a couple of thousand paid seats, paid tickets. So
he was the main draw for big time wrestling, no doubt about it.
So this night he was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Sheik against Andre the Giant. Mm-hmm. Terry and Dory Funk were the big draws. Mark Lewin was also there. But the Funks were supposed to be the draws, and they came into Detroit expecting a certain payoff. Now, after the show is over, I'm out in the hallway outside of the dressing rooms back in the bowels of the Cobo Arena talking to Terry and Dory Funk. You told me that Brian
Bucantis was there, Gary Kamensak, Gary Mancuso, I think, was there, and Brad McFarlane. They witnessed this also.
Some of the photographers were there. And Funks were waiting to get paid. I was just waiting, who knows what, because I never got paid that night. In fact, nobody got paid at Cobo. Everybody got paid once a week. Checks went out on Mondays, either given to you in the towns or they would mail them to you. But occasionally wrestlers would get advances, and I don't know whether the Funks were waiting for an advance on their check or were waiting for their entire money. All of a sudden, the door bursts open. Here comes Eddie Jr., Captain Ed George, Eddie Farhat Jr., the Sheik's son. Oh my God, you're not going to believe it. The box office has been robbed. There is no money. And my thought in my mind was, you're kidding me. This is not true. Eddie, I know you well enough to know that you're BSing here. The Funks knew the same thing. Nobody really acknowledged, I don't know what he expected us to do, start jumping and tearing our hair out and whatever might have happened here. Somebody really robbed the box office. Nobody believed him.
Yeah, it's like the Funks, they would have been the first ones to go chase the thief.
Probably so.
Yeah. But of all things, Joyce Farhat, who usually handles some of the money and, the other, particulars of the Cobo, she had already left.
Yeah.
She wasn't there.
She got out of Dodge. Nobody really knew exactly where she was. What I think is that, as I said, times were tough. And I think there were some important bills due somewhere, either on a personal or business level, perhaps Cobo Arena itself to keep Cobo every 2 weeks. But whatever, somebody made the decision is that the Funks aren't going to get paid tonight.
Yeah. And, Terry Funk wrote about this incident in his book.
Yeah.
My friends, the Garys, Brian and Brad, they told me about it, But throughout the years, Eddie Farhad Jr. denied that ever happened.
Oh, yeah.
He never did that.
Yeah.
And the thing that, perplexes me about this whole situation is that if there was a box office robbery at Cobo Arena, first and foremost, that box office is like a fortress.
Yeah.
Nobody gets in there, and Frankie, the head guy there, Frankie, he would have chased away a robber and just by talking to him. But why wasn't there no police report?
That we know of.
Yeah, police weren't called.
No.
You didn't see anything in the Detroit News or the Detroit Free Press
Wouldn't
the
you
next
think?
day
That
about a
would've
box office. That would have been big news.
Yeah, because I bought the Detroit paper for the next week.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. The only thing that was in the paper were the results.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, truth or myth?
Well, a little of both.
It actually happened, fans.
Yeah.
No matter, you're not going to, doubt Terry Funk, who wrote that in a,
Right.
worldwide book.
Of course, as he wrote in his book, it was after a match between he and Dory against the Sheik and the Butcher. But in fact, it was not. The Sheik was not there. Night. If the Sheik had been there, my opinion, never would have happened.
No, he wouldn't have let that
Sheik
allow
would have
to
sat
happen.
down with Terry and Dory and said, "Look, man, can you float me for a couple of weeks?" And the Funks came back, so obviously at some point in time they got paid.
Yeah. So, and at that time, nobody trusted Eddie Farhad Jr. anyway. The captain. The captain went down with the ship that night. Let's just
He
put
was
that
looking
to
out.
rest.
He was looking out for the family.
And